Welcome to the Michigan Golfer Show. Join us each week as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great game.
Hi, I'm Jack Berry for Michigan Golfer TV, and I'm here with Tom Doak up at the Roscommon at Forest Dunes and talking about the old days and how Tom got started in this business. And Tom's a pretty smart guy. He got with Pete Dye, who is one of the classic designers of all time and was kind of your mentor. Tom, tell us how you got together.
Well, it started, I wrote people in the golf business asking for advice on what should I study to get into this business and how do you do it? And in 1980, pretty much every single person I wrote said, you want to go work for Pete Dye. And not just because he's a really good architect, but he's really involved in building the courses that he designs, and you're going to have to understand that part too. So I wrote Pete letters for 2 or 3 years.
How old were you when you started?
I was 18. And when I was 20, I would get nice letters back from Pete or from Alice saying, being kind of encouraging, but, they didn't have much going on at the time. And then when I was 20, I came back from school my junior year, and I was home for a day, and Pete Dye called me on the phone. First time I ever talked to him, and said, we're building a course down here at Hilton Head, and we're kind of short on crew, and, do you really want a job? And so I spent the summer of between my junior and senior years in college working out in the dirt at Long Cove Club at Hilton Head, which was just a revelation. I mean, it took me a week to get my bearings. I've been seeing great courses and trying to study what I was going to do, but it was the first time I'd ever seen a construction site.
In the dirt. Right. Yeah.
In the dirt. It was all sand. Everything in Hilton Head is basically sand. And after a couple of days, I'm like, so they're just going to plant grass on most of this and then not plant grass there, and that's a bunker. A big, long waste bunker going down the side of the hole. But, Long Cove, we had a crew full of 20 to 25-year-old kids working on the construction of the golf course. And Pete and Alice were living there that summer. Their son, PB, was on a bulldozer shaping greens. Bobby Weed, who's an architect now in his own right, was the golf course superintendent and kind of construction superintendent for the thing, and a bunch of turf students and me. And I was the only one who was crazy enough to say he wanted to be a golf course architect, and most of the crew thought, well, he's nuts. You can never do that. But it was, and we worked like 80 hours a week in the dirt. I remember distinctly I was making $4 an hour, but my first paycheck with time and a half for overtime, I made $400 in a week. The great thing about the Dyes, they were very open about what they did. I mean, I might have driven Pete crazy asking him questions, but, he treated everybody on the crew the same way he treated the clients, and he would tell you what he was thinking and why he was doing something if you were interested enough to ask. I remember at one point I was working with his son, PB, on a project in Savannah, and PB was expounding on golf course architecture one night after dinner, and the third guy had been his college roommate, and Steve Luciola, and Steve piped up, PB's going on and on about architecture, and Steve goes, PB, are you sure you want to be telling Tommy all this stuff? Because he's smart, he's going to remember it. and PB said, hey, more power to him. If he can take that and go build golf courses on his own, more power to him. I mean, there were no family secrets. It's like, we're trying to do as good work as we can, and if you can do good work too, good for you. So I really took that to heart. I mean, I learned everything I know about how to build a golf course from working for the Dyes. And I learned how much effort you really have to put into it to build something that's really good. I asked Pete really early on, why he was there with 6:30 in the morning every day with the crew. And he said, I tried to build a couple courses just by drawing plans and going out to see how they were coming, and they just didn't turn out good enough. They just weren't coming out the way I wanted them to, and I figured the only way it was going to happen is if I was out there making it happen. I've tried to follow that example. I mean, I don't have to be there at 6:30 every morning with the crew. I've got some really sharp young people working for me now. And, and I've always been really open with them the same way PB was with me. The attraction of them working for me is they know if they build something really good, it's going to stay. And by the same token, they know if they build something that's not quite right, it's going to change, but I'm going to tell them why. And that's what everybody wants to learn. How are we doing what we're doing? What's the difference between good work and really great work? And, our company has kind of fostered this thing now where they don't always have to wait for me. They'll tell each other. One of them will be shaping a green over here, and it could be really good, but the other guys aren't afraid to say, that's really good, but what if you did this? And so half the time I come back to see what they've done, it's already done. There's not really much I have to add. And, a lot of times I've just become a good editor after the initial part of getting the hole in the right place the first time. One of the best compliments I've ever got, Eric Iverson, who's worked for me for a long time. I think you might have met him. He played in the opening of High Point. He was on the irrigation crew at High Point 30 years ago. And Eric said, well, building greens in some of these places we're building greens, it's like coming to bat with the bases loaded all the time. You do anything good, it's going to drive in a couple of runs. But, especially now, I've had some tremendously talented people work for me. Gil Hance and Mike DeVries. Gil Hance was my first employee. Mike DeVries was my second. Now they're out competing with me for jobs.
Well, you must be pretty proud of the work that they've done.
It's great to it's great both to see the kind of work they're doing and that they're getting a chance to do it. Because honestly, I've had a bunch of other people work for me that are that talented too, but jobs are harder to come by these days. And I wish they all had a chance to go out and build a golf course on their own so we could see what they could really do. But it's a very competitive world, and there's a handful of us that get most of the calls. And I'll try to refer one of the kids that work for me for a job when we're too busy to take it, but usually the client wants a bigger name or somebody that's already a known quantity, and it's really hard to refer a smart young person for a job. The one time I've been really successful was this new Stoatin Brae course.
This is down for the Scott family down near Kalamazoo, right?
And I'd met John Scott somewhere along the way, and when they started thinking about a new golf course, he called me and basically said, I don't know if we can afford you, but I know I want to talk to you about this project at least before I go try to do it myself or whatever. And it was just after I'd been hired to do the loop. That hadn't even been announced yet. But I went down thinking, this would be a hard job for me to do because the loop is a big project for us, and it's a pretty complicated concept, and I really want to spend a lot of time on it. So I don't know how this is going to work out. But, John's family has built golf courses. Half the golf courses they own, they built themselves. They were looking, but this was a much more open piece of land. Nearly everything they'd been done up to that point was cut out of the trees. And they were a little scared of building a golf course on open ground with big views and, but no definition for it really. And so I said right from the beginning, well, maybe you can't afford me and maybe I don't have time to do it anyway, but would you consider hiring my associates to work with you on it? Because they're really talented guys, and they, I try to give them name recognition, but but the stories usually come out about me, and that's just a little footnote down to the side. It'd be great to give them a chance. And, if you want me to come for a day or two and kind of bless the routing plan, I'm happy to do that. Or if you want me to come like once or twice during construction just to see that they're doing okay, yeah, I would do that. But you can't use my name. I can't be letting you use my name for free when somebody else is paying a lot for it up the road. And he said, okay. So Eric and Brian Slonick and Brian Schneider and Don Placek, who runs my office, they started working on the routing for the golf course themselves. And it was kind of a point of pride with them to not have John call me and ask for help and just to do it themselves. And, at the end of it, I asked them, well, how do the four of you get together to do a routing plan? Because I don't have to worry about what the other guys think. I can just grab your idea for one hole and do the rest myself. And they said, well, there were only a couple holes that we kind of all had on the plan, but, one of us, Brian Slonick, actually had routed the golf course kind of like the opposite direction from the other three. And they found a couple things on his plan that really worked better than the way they were all going. So it made them kind of flip over and work on the back part of the property a little different. And that really, they were smart enough to figure out how to combine their best ideas. I stayed away from the project. I was busy with other things, and so I didn't see it from the time I met John the first time until it was all done and grassed. And we just played it for our Renaissance Cup event. It's a really interesting golf course that was built on a fairly shoestring budget. It'll be affordable to play, and it's a lot of fun to play, and it's a challenging golf course. It's not a pushover by any means.
Well, people who played it like it, and they like seeing the Kalamazoo River and just the difference. Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty place, and I hope it does real well for them, and I hope it doesn't go to their heads because I still need them to build my stuff. So I hope they're not just going to get really busy on their own and not have any time for me anymore. But I don't, hopefully I still get first dibs on the really good site.
Tom Doak has got all the good sites, and he has really done a beautiful job. And we're happy to be talking with him here at one of his latest great jobs, The Loop, here at Forest Dunes.